All right, next episode. So I was looking at this today. Right, I got my son. He's almost 6 months old, and I'm just like enjoying having him. It's like one of the greatest things ever is being a father, and just looking at my son and just explaining things to him, talking to him like an equal. Now, there's a lot out there, about like when you talk to a kid and you like dumb things down for the kid, how it's not best for the kid. And that's probably common sense to a lot of people listening to this, but some people may not realize that. Like when you dumb down what you're saying to a kid, that is, I'll just say it blunt. It's abuse. Like straight up, you're gonna dumb your kid down. And I'm not saying like only speak to your kid in like fancy ways and use big terminology, but your kid's absorbing so much from you. And I'm saying this because even if you don't have a kid or you got kids and they're grown up or whatever, it's like, how are you talking to yourself? How are you talking to the world? Are you clear on what it is that you stand for? Are you clear on what it is that's your message that's getting out there? So in this episode, I'm going to really open this up and I'm going to share a little bit with you about the vision that I see for the world, and how each of us play a part in that. Because like the old phrase is, without vision, the people perish. And as I'm looking at this now, so I'm telling my son, I was like teaching him about the weather, and I was teaching him about different things because it's like the first day of spring. And I've been, I took him out on the porch to get some sun. And it was so cool because I was explaining to him, like, look, like you feel that on your skin, that's the sun. And, it's bright out there. And I'm like explaining all these things to him just because it's like, I wish that was done for me when I was a kid. I mean, my parents, explained a lot to me, but it was like, when I'm looking at my son, my intention is this kid is going to be a genius. Like he's going to be one of the greatest humans possible. I'm not going to say one of the greatest humans that ever lived because that's not the point. Just the greatest he can possibly be. Because the bigger vision is having hundreds and then thousands and then millions of kids like him growing up. So now what I want to explain is a concept that you probably heard before, but here's a spin on it. It's called The Fourth Turning. It's from a book called The Fourth Turning. But it's this old phrase of like good times create weak men. Have you ever heard this? And it actually got really popularized recently when we were looking at all the political stuff that was happening and the pandemics and all that. And there's been a lot of changes in the world. And the phrase, for anyone who isn't aware of it, is good times create weak men create strong, what is it? Okay, here's the phrase. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men, and strong men create good times. Here's the real vision, and this is what's possible, because that's all just a giant program. Like it's a bunch of programs all combined. In terms of how people are looking at the world, and they're like, oh yeah, that's how it is. There's always just gonna be hard times and all that. Nah. When we have the hard times or the good times, it's going to create wise men. And wise men can transcend that cycle. And yeah, there's going to be times where it's harder or less hard or whatever. It's like you always need to keep building your strength. But instead of building your strength by having to like fend for yourself and like go hunt all day just to get food, we have different things we can create because we have a certain set of wisdom. So we can actually enjoy like the fact that you don't have to go hunt your food. And you could still do things to strengthen you. You could still do hard things. Like I went on a 10-mile run the other day because I was like, let me just show myself I can do this. And it was cool and it was really hard, but it was like I engineered that. I was at cause over it instead of at effect. So here's the vision for the world is let's break that cycle. The good times, creating weak men and all that stuff is like, that's just from a very low level of thinking. That's a very low vocabulary way of looking at things. So here's some vision. Okay, right now, we're in a position where AI and automation is massively disrupting the economy. It's only going to keep increasing. I was at the store earlier today too, and I had to run to the pharmacy for something, And then I was like at a convenience store. I was looking at what people are doing. I'm like, this is insane that we don't already have robots automating this. So that there was the first fully automated McDonald's in Denver, Colorado, coming to a city near you. Automation is going to wipe people out. And if we're not careful, that's going to be a lot of people without work. And the Federal Reserve and the governments are going to have to do something to give people some sort of income. Here's the thing. Do you want yourself or your kids to enter a world where there's income just being given out, but it's not coupled with a real effective education and that the income has strings attached to it? Because that's where the world's headed. Again, talking about purpose and reality here is consider your purpose is to actually step up as a leader. Is to actually step up and have your voice be heard, and for you to be educated enough to hold your own in conversations, and for you to have the right principles so every decision that you make has a effective consequence. A lot of people think consequence is a bad thing, probably because you got, beat as a kid or something like that. But a consequence really just means something that follows something else. So when we're looking at this, how do we operate in a way that creates the best consequences? So for one is, automation, AI, all these different things happening in the economy that's really messing things up. I mean, you tell me, do you want to be in a world where the vast majority of people don't have a job? What happens when they're hungry? What happens when they got kids to feed? They're going to come knocking on your door. Do you also want to be in a world where then they do universal basic income, but it's based on if you're a good citizen or not? Who's calling the shots? Have you ever heard of the ESG? We'll get into that in future episodes, talk about World Economic Forum. And I'm sharing all this because the way forward is by you becoming really, really effective at understanding the right principles to live by. And then you become very effective at making money because you have to become the elite to influence the elite. And I don't mean you have to now become the 1% of just making money, but you got to become pretty dang good at it. And you got to know the right people and have the right network of influencers, decision makers, playing at that level. So that's what I'm going to go really in depth into in these episodes to come. And here's a little bit more on the vision. Imagine we do have universal basic income, but everyone's highly educated and everyone's able to actually just live their life where they can give their creative expression or whatever they feel is their calling to give. So if someone does want to work with, let's say, with kids and inspire those kids and help them get, raised and have a really good education, that person would have the time and space to do that. Someone's really passionate about helping animals, or someone wants to clean up the oceans from pollution, or, someone wants to work on how we could reinvent banking and how the money system works. Let's set the world up and let's set our kids up so that they can actually do that. Because right now, the average kid is going to school and they don't know anything about reality. So consider this. For the vision of the world is, imagine we have such an effective system set up where every kid is guaranteed to have basic, understanding, basic dignity, basic appreciation of life and what they could have for their purpose. And then when those kids grow up, what kind of political systems are they going to create? Pretty cool. Also, though, what can be done about our supply chain? We saw in the past few years how the supply chain got all messed up. There's plenty of innovation that we can do with that. How about sustainable living? My wife and I have, different animals we're getting this spring. We're going to order 20 new chickens here in the next week so that we can have our own eggs and our own meat and things like that. It's not that we're fully going off grid, but it's I would much rather know what is going into the chickens than I'm eating the eggs. Much rather know that than just buy some, big brand, chickens or eggs or whatever. Eat chicken nuggets at McDonald's. It's I think everyone really wants that deep down. You at least want to know your neighbors, you want to know your community, that kind of thing. And you would like to have the best version of food, the best, water, make sure you have clean water. So things like that. This requires us to get really, really good at being able to influence ourselves, two, being able to understand the outcomes that we're after. And also, though, it's a process to do this. Because if you're walking in to, let's say, your vision, your business, and what you say you're here to do, but you're coming in with a bunch of garbage and a bunch of limited ways of thinking, a bunch of past pains and limiting beliefs, what's the outcome you're going to create? How could it possibly be that good if you're coming in with a bunch of garbage? You might feel good and you might be able to trick yourself into thinking you're creating a good outcome, but really, the best outcome would be one that, again, creates all the best consequences for everyone. So what you create with your life, your gift to give to the world, something that actually gives to others. Like there's people in my life who I know who I'm forever thankful for because of how they've supported me through giving me good ideas, like mentoring, coaching, however you want to say it, different books that I've read, different techniques that I've done and trainings and things that just forever have changed my life. But imagine if the average person was able to create stuff of that level of value. How cool would that be? Now, also, here's another thing, longevity. A lot of people are talking about how they think they can live forever. They can live for, 200, 300 years, 400, 500 years. Ray Kurzweil, look at him. Peter Diamandis, look at him. These are guys that are big in Silicon Valley, and they're talking about how you can edit your genes and how you can have different things like stem cells and things to basically stop aging. Now, when is that technology fully going to be here? I mean, it's pretty mind-boggling what's already here, like CRISPR and different technologies like that. But imagine that, where the average person, let's even say their lifespan doubled. So it's normal to be like 120. Yet you would be living like you're, a healthy 40-year-old, basically the whole time. I mean, imagine that. Like, that's what's going to happen. And you're either going to be prepared for it and you're going to take advantage of it or not. But here's the other thing. A lot of people are going to look at that and go, oh, yeah, I want to live forever. I don't ever want to die. But you never actually live. So I'm not sharing this so you can just go, oh, yeah, cool, and then keep operating out of fear. I'm sharing this to help stimulate some ideas and help wake you up so you can go, okay, well, what is the best purpose? Where I could live that every day, and whether I live to be 50 or 150 or whatever, that's what I can live. So this is the vision that it's not just myself, but many of my colleagues and I are working on is really comes back to three things so that we can enjoy all of this stuff. But the first is really, really effective education. This is education, podcasts, books, doing the process. This is education. I don't mean school. There's no place for school in its current form in creating a better world. It's a whole big transformation that we're making happen. First is education. People got to understand things. After we understand things, and we have enough people doing that, then it's a political movement. It's us taking the power back in government. I don't mean revolution. Revolution is stupid. Look at the word. This is education, right? Revolution means to revolve, go back to the same place. Never works, never will work. But it's an evolution of what's possible. And you get that through having an educated populace. What a crazy idea. Have the average person be able to be smart and could read the bills. Read the laws that are being passed or not being passed. Reforming how we do voting, things like that. I'm sure there's cool stuff with the blockchain that we can do. So it's first, education. Second is how we govern ourselves. And then the third is, this is really big. Might be too much for some of you, but I'm just going to throw it out there, is we really got to look at the money system. Because right now we're in a debt-based system. And it's causing a lot of issues. So rather, it would be a evolved form of capitalism where we still have capitalism. Because capitalism is inspiring, creates healthy competition. There's a lot of good that comes from capitalism. Yet we have to be honest about the fact that automation's coming in. It's going to really mess up a lot of people, and people are not educated. I mean, Andrew Yang was talking about this when he was running for president. He was saying how they did a bunch of research on truck drivers because they know truck drivers are going to be automated, and no one's got a real solution for it except what you're going to learn here in the show. And the truck drivers, out of all the ones that they brought in to then learn how to become like software engineers, they were trying to do a reskilling campaign to help them get new skills. It's like less than 2% of them actually learn the new skill. I mean, it's atrocious. That's why number one is re-education. Okay. So got to look at how we can evolve with capitalism and with the economy so that everyone at least has their basics met. And if you want to go above and beyond and have a Ferrari or have a private jet or travel to Hawaii or whatever, you got to earn that. But if everyone has an effective education and we can actually trust each other and our communities and our politicians, it's a pretty fertile environment for you to actually crush it and provide a ton of value for the world. Imagine the level of value you'd be able to create if you weren't just so worried about survival or worried that someone was going to come or some bank was going to collapse or something was going to come mess you up. But you actually had the ability to create from a starting point of creating more pleasure and more enjoyment for the world instead of just a fear of survival and pain. Way different paradigm. Okay, so pretty cool stuff that we're going to get into. And again, it's high level, but I make these because it's stuff that's become so obvious to me. I have to put it out there. I have to. I don't have a choice, because to bring it full circle, when I'm looking at my son, I'm chatting with him. I'm telling him stuff, and he's starting to learn how to talk now. It's really cool. I'm looking at him. I look into his eyes, and I'm like, I am going to make this be the best world I possibly can for you. The ultimate act of love, the ultimate act of service for him. Because there's an old phrase, it's like, the freedoms that you give up today are the ones that your grandchildren won't know existed. I'll say it again. The freedoms that you give up today are the ones your grandchildren will never know existed. Really think about that. So I refuse to give up my freedoms, but it's also the freedom for me to choose the best option. It's not just the freedoms of like, oh, can I go into the mall without wearing a mask or whatever? It's like, yeah, that's a huge part of it. But it's also the freedom for me to choose to create the best outcome. And it's like, it's a giant decision tree. Every time I make the best decision, that opens up more best decisions. And when I do that, and as I keep doing that, and you keep doing that, and your friends keep doing that, and this community keeps doing that, we keep creating that, we keep creating more options for ourselves as humanity, instead of narrowing ourselves in. And then it becomes a very tricky situation. Because like, could you imagine this just for a moment? Not to be doom and gloom, but try this on for doom and gloom for a moment. Imagine we get it set up, because there's 5G now, there's going to be 6G. What that implies is that they're going to be able to hook up cameras and microphones on every single street corner, like in cities and even in small towns, where now you can connect all of that onto the cloud. It's basically called the Internet of Things. You can look it up. But imagine that being used for surveillance. Imagine every Ring, in the US it's popular, it might be popular in Europe too, or wherever you are, where you have a Ring system and it's on your front door. And it allows you to, it's like a home security system, which is cool. But remember, Amazon is a for-profit company. It's actually the majority shareholders in Amazon is not actually Jeff Bezos anymore. Do you know this? It's a company called BlackRock. If you don't know about BlackRock, we'll get into that in future episodes too, because for purpose and reality, we got to be honest about reality. We got to have bigger and better purpose than what BlackRock's trying to do. But imagine, we live in a world where now basically everything is able to be part of a surveillance state. So every Ring recording device has a microphone and a video on it. I was in New York the other week, and we went to the top of the Empire State Building, but I was looking at the intersections, and every single one of them has cameras on it, which again, cool. Like I like having the understanding that there's those video cameras, but if we're not careful, and then that blends with automation and facial recognition, now they can start to say, oh, like a ESG type system. If you don't know what ESG is, you got to look it up. You got to be aware of this stuff. And now imagine they say, hey, you posted that meme about Joe Biden saying that he was too old to be president. Your score has been docked for hate speech. Now all of a sudden, and you jaywalked. So you walked across the street when it wasn't a green light. Oh, you didn't wear your mask, and you're supposed to wear a mask when you're within 6 feet of people. All of a sudden, it's like a credit score, except it's based on you as a citizen. Now imagine we've automated that. Imagine that's automated, so it's connected to your bank account. And we have a central bank digital currency, because they're trying to propose that right now, CBDC. You got to look this stuff up. Imagine that's automated. That's going to be way harder for us to create a better world. Because you might think, oh, I'm a good person. Why would I have anything to worry about? Well, if you have a differing opinion than the mainstream, like in California, they have this, where doctors, unless they go along with the party line of the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control, if they have a differing opinion to that, because they do the science and they learn that, oh, we should actually question this, they can literally lose their medical license and they can be charged with misinformation. And then the whole slew of things that come with that. So if you can have any common sense and put this together, we're on track for a gnarly ride. And now you can't go into doom and gloom about it, but you got to be honest with it. And if there's some pain that you feel, good. because that pain can sometimes be enough for you to move. But here's the part that I'll bring this home with is, so I'm looking at what we're creating here. I'm, again, chatting with my son about it, chatting with my wife about it, chatting with my team about it. It's really cool. We're creating it. And I see where we could go if we're not careful. But now this brings it all home, is you got to stay focused on what you want. You got to really stay focused on what you want. But here's the thing. What you want might be messed up. It probably is if you haven't really started the process of really looking at where do your beliefs come from and things like that. Because what you want might be I want to be a DJ and travel the world and spread love to my fans. Okay, if you want to be a DJ and travel the world and spread love, okay, but what's your real starting point? Because just spreading love ain't going to stop the CBDC from being passed. Now, if you can use your gifts, though, to help us create community where we can have this high-level conversation which supports educating the planet, and then as we're educated, then we can have conversations about who we should get into political office and, what other things we can do, like influencing the media and things like that. Like my friend JJ, he's he's got pretty big on Instagram, he's got on the radio, and he's a rapper. He makes great music. But in his music, he has principles and purpose in it. It's the stuff I talk about in the show. Now imagine when JJ's an A-list celebrity, and he's got 30 other A-list celebrities with him. Or we make our own version of what constitutes an A-list celebrity. Pretty cool stuff. There's a lot that can be done with that. That's what you can align your purpose with. I mean, imagine how cool it would be if you align your purpose. So yeah, let's say you're a DJ and you love to travel the world. Great. What if you're a DJ who travels the world who also then spreads this message? Almost like a gospel of sorts. Gospel means good news. It is good news, isn't it? Now, what else you might like? It's tricky. Because it's you probably like to eat chocolate and junk food. Probably feels good in the moment, but it's not actually best for you. And there's a time and place where you can enjoy some chocolate or some junk food in small doses. But here's my invitation to you is let's really connect on this stuff. So you can make sure that your desires and your path and your goals and your dreams and all that good stuff that you want to create, and I want to help you create it, whether that can also be aligned with what's going to create a way better world for everybody. So we can have a heaven on earth of sorts. And it's not going to come just by thinking about it and just by praying for it. It's going to come from massive action. It's going to come from us really connecting and us getting really brutally honest about how the system works. So you could have the best plans ever and you could be yeah, we're going to create this political party and it's going to be amazing and it's going to be so good. But you don't understand how interconnected the systems is. And I'll have entire episodes on systems thinking. I might bring on some guests for that too. But unless you see the whole system, you're going to miss the fact that the media can very easily give you a smear campaign. The media can very easily say, oh yeah, this group, they're actually a bunch of extremists, and it's a threat to our democracy. And so there's so many different pieces. And again, that's why I'm putting together this show. And that's also why we have the Self-Perfected group and the Self-Perfected podcast, which has awesome resources on that, is we got to get really clear on what we're up against and what's here, and use it as the ultimate weight, you're getting really strong. It's you just put on, you put on more weight, yet you have everything you need to lift it and to get the result that you want. Okay? So that's a bit of my vision for the world. Let's use everything that's here and be the best versions of ourselves and raise awesome kids and have awesome community. And every weekend we can have a big hangout and just think of the most fun thing. Let's end on this note. Think of the most fun thing or 3 things that you love to do. For me, one example is reading. I love to read. If I could read for 8 hours a day, I would. I can set up my life to do that, but it's not really practical. But if I could read an hour a day, I love doing that. You might have other stuff that you just love to do, like music or whatever. But think of 3 things you love to do. Maybe it's hanging out with your wife or your friends or going out working out or whatever. Think of that. How much fun that is for you. And why do you like it? Think of a few things right now, why do you actually love that thing? Okay? Now, for a moment, think about you living your purpose and you building your business, having the impact, being part of this re-education of humanity. Stepping up, having influence, influencing how politics happens, influencing the media. You stepping up and doing all that. how does that feel now? Maybe a little bit more pain than pleasure? Whereas the thing you love is probably just massive pleasure associated to it. Or if there's pain, it's like you go through the pain, like a workout. Sometimes it's painful, but you actually get the pleasure from the result. So what we're gonna do in the episodes to come is really start to undo that pain associated with you living your purpose and really start to link and stack a massive amount of pleasure with it. Again, it doesn't mean you're always gonna feel really good, but it's like you get the pleasure because you know it's the best thing to do. And you're gonna be so grateful that you did it. And it's like, it's just who you are. And because of that, there's a certain type of pleasure in that. Not like a fake, shallow bullshit pleasure. Like I see the truth in this, I see the common sense in this, I see the purity in this, and this is gonna create the best outcome for everyone, and we're all gonna experience way more pleasure. But we're not doing it because of pleasure, we're doing it because it's the best thing, but nonetheless, the pleasure is pretty cool as a byproduct of it, okay? And then that's gonna help you live longer, have more fun, all that good stuff too. Like if you're in a general state of enjoyment and pleasure, you're probably gonna have better conversations with people. Probably gonna be a better parent or spouse or whatever. You're gonna show up and do better. So that's where we're headed in this journey. All right, so thanks for tuning in. If you found value from this, please share this. Like, this is free. The way that you can pay for it is just by sharing it, leaving a comment and a like so that this gets boosted, because it's time for us to wake up and time for us to all get on the same page, okay? And this is the vision. This is part of the vision for it. All right, so reach out. We can connect more, and see you in the next episode.